Just a quick preamble. The day this is scheduled to come out, that's my birthday. If this is your first time listening, don't worry about it. If you're a regular listener and you're like, hey, the guy's pretty cool, I'd like to get him something for his birthday. There is a Venmo link in the show notes. You want to drop a couple dollars for gunpowder or gasoline, two of my major or any number of other things, maybe a fancy city cup of coffee. I'd appreciate it. So if you're interested, listen to this when it comes out, March 25th. That is my birthday. And again, if you want to send something, Venmo some money, hey, you shall not muzzle the ox while it treads out the grain. I appreciate you. What is going on, alpha males? Welcome to Alpha Male Podcast, the podcast where we talk about what it means to be a man, made in the image of God, strong, dominant, in control. We don't apologize for that. Today, we're going to talk about, are we concerned about the wrong things? Are we concerned about, anxious about the wrong things? Or our priorities about what we should be concerned about in the wrong place? I'll put in the bio and then we'll get into the main topic. I'll roll into a quick abbreviated bio and then into the main topic. First and foremost, I am a Christian. I don't apologize for that. God is number one in my life. I grew up hunting and fishing in the backwoods of the southeastern United States at a very early age. Some of my earliest memories are with firearms. I joined the Marine Corps at 17, did a couple of combat tours in Iraq. By God's grace, He got me through that safely. After that, I served as an instructor, an urban warfare instructor and a desert warfare instructor for the United States Marine Corps. I also served with the LAPD, both full-time as a sworn police officer and in some more specialized assignments, as well as serving in the U.S. Army, full-time and part-time National Guard. I've been a FBI firearms instructor, still am an FBI firearms instructor, have been for a lot of years, also NRA certified and some other three-letter government agency certified. I've been a private contractor for a three-letter government agency I won't specify. I've been the commander of a tactical team in a large metropolitan area. By God's grace, He got me through all that in one piece, not because I'm better, but because He chose to have grace and mercy on me. I've been a professional hunter and guide. Professionally hunted things like buffalo and elk. Not many people today can say they've done that, but I'm blessed to be able to say that I have. I've hunted everything from white-tailed deer on the East Coast to mule deer on the West Coast to gray squirrel on the East Coast to prairie dog on the West Coast, and elk and bear and wolf, and slain all manner of beast. A state rifle and pistol champion a few times over in a few different disciplines. Now those experiences, it's not because I'm bigger or badder, certainly not bigger. In fact, I met one of the patrons in real life and he said something to the effect of, I thought you'd be bigger. Reminded me of that William Wallace movie where he's like, oh yeah, if William Wallace were here, he'd shoot lightning bolts out of his rear end. Well, I'm not William Wallace, but I am the person that did all those things in the bio. But not because I'm bigger or badder. I don't think that I survived when many other young, good men did not. I give all the glory and all the credit to God, all the talents and experiences that He's given me and the things that He's let me live through. I hope to use them to glorify God and to help you today. So if I boast in anything, it's not in my strength. It's in that God had mercy on me and saved me because He had a purpose for me. And hopefully I can use those talent, skills, and abilities to serve you today. Now, you're probably familiar, although not necessarily, that I do another podcast. Actually, the one I do the most is Gunfighter Life. Been a professional gunfighter most of my adult life, as you can probably tell from the bio. And in that, just to jump off into the topic we're going to talk about today, sometimes the topic of animal defense comes up. What caliber, what kind of gun is best for, let's just pick a bear defense. I live in northern Idaho where there are grizzly bear and black bear and lions and wolves, oh my. I spend a lot of time in the backcountry. I live as a nomad. I live off-grid. let's just say my odds of running into an angry animal that wants to eat me are a lot higher than most. And I do a whole podcast on guns, and the topic often comes up, is a revolver better than a semi-auto? What's better, 10mm or 44 Magnum? And you don't have to even know what those things are, but anyway, that gets talked about a lot. What happens if a bear tries to eat me? And not that that's not a real concern. Again, I go healed most everywhere. Just went to Walmart, went healed. Go to church, go healed. Go to the creek to get some water, you go healed. I get that. That is a concern. But a lot of people, I think, spend way too much time on that. Here's what probably is more of an issue. Instead of what's going to eat you, what are you eating? Are you worried about a bear trying to eat you while you stuff your face with Little Debbie? Because that's way more likely to have significant life ramifications than you getting killed by a bear. Now, I don't know how many men in Idaho were killed by bears, or Montana or Wyoming, in this pocket where we have both kinds of bear. Black bear and grizzly bear. And again, mountain lion and wolf. I don't know how many men in each state, but I bet it's probably in the single digits every year that get killed by those animals. How many men in those states do you think have type 2 diabetes? Right? How many men in those states do you think die of heart disease? And some heart disease is like genetic and stuff, but a lot of that is due to poor diet, high blood pressure, all that kind of stuff. Clogged arteries. I'm not saying not to carry a gun when you go in the woods. I think you should carry a gun pretty much any time. But how much time do you spend concerned about that versus you worry about is 10mm better than 44 Magnum while you're eating Little Debbie or eating Doritos and drinking Diet Coke? Because that's way more likely to have significant day-to-day impact on your life and be a significant hindrance on your life as a man, your effectiveness, your combat effectiveness, than whether you get 10mm or 40 Smith & Wesson or 357 Magnum or 44 Magnum, right? A revolver versus a semi-auto. Those things, I'm not saying they're not significant at all, but I'm saying way more significant as to your quality of life, your combat effectiveness, even let's just say your survival, because survival is about surviving, right? It's probably what you're putting in your mouth instead of worrying about what's going to put you in its mouth. What are you putting in your mouth? What are you eating? Is it a normal human diet? Like, is it something that somebody pre-industrial revolution would have eaten? Or is it refined sugar, genetically modified grains, sprayed with glyphosate, Roundup, and, put together literally in a lab? Got a bunch of people for these big companies working to how can we make this food appealing to get people to eat it? Or should you eat like regular human food, like meat? It just seems like a plague. I know people listen from all over the world, and I'm very humble, but in America especially, it's just a plague of obesity. That's probably going to have way more of an impact on your life day to day than a bear. I'm not telling you not to worry about getting eaten by a bear and not to carry a gun when you go in the woods. I'm saying keep it in proportion. Keep it in the reality. A lot of times we freak out about. Another one is exercise. And I've been exercising, except for maybe the war, pretty consistently for well over 20 years now. When this episode's done, I'm about to go work out again. A lot of people, and I've seen these fads come and go. P90X, Tae Bo, kickboxing. The latest one, CrossFit. Is this one better than that one? What about this? What about that? Should I do 3 sets of 10? Should I do 4 sets of 4 and go heavy? Here's the thing. It all works, and none of it works. It'll all work if you do it, right? If you do it consistently, 8-minute abs that I started doing in high school will work if you do it consistently. Is it the best ab work out there? Probably not, but it'll work if you do it consistently. Just pick something and do it, right? Just do it and be consistent. Be less concerned about what it actually is optimally the best? Because any of it is going to be better for you than sitting in a cubicle, than sitting on a couch and watching Netflix. You're worried debating this gym versus that gym, or what about this workout routine versus that workout routine. If you haven't worked out today, do some push-ups. Do some crunches. Go for a run. Pick one. Do all of them. Any of them. They all work, and none of them work if you don't do them. The best workout routine written by multiple PhD fitness specialists, molecular biologists. If you don't do it, it doesn't work. Meanwhile, if you go running and do some push-ups, it'll work. So be less concerned about what the actual minutia of it is and just do it. Just do something. What's better results for running? What wind sprint interval? What pace at what speed and what plan for the... Did you run? Did you run today? Just run. It's not rocket science. I don't care if you do sprints or just go for a long run. Or if you're really out of shape, run until you can't run anymore and then walk a little bit and then run some more. Any of that will work. So be less concerned about what the actual optimal is until you get to the point where you're really, really consistently exercising in a certain way and think, maybe there's a better way to do this. But until you get there, just do something. That's way more important. There are times when I don't have access to a gym where I'll literally work out in the woods with rocks or with rubber bands, those workout bands. Or I'll literally do push-ups with my wife on my back. Is that the best? Is that the most optimal? No, but it's better than just sitting there and be like, well, I don't have access to this equipment, so I'm just going to sit on my lazy butt and do nothing. Is it optimal? No. Is it way better than doing nothing? Yeah, for sure. It's like debating what the best form of hand-to-hand combat is. Is, BJJ better than Krav Maga? Is that better than Sistema? Right? Are you used to getting punched in the face? Because probably you should get punched in the face a couple of times. Any of those, in theory, will work. But in any fight, you just assume you're going to get punched in the face. And if you don't, hey, sweet. But you get started, you probably should learn to get punched in the face a couple of times. That's just a thing that happens in fighting. And just pick one. If there's one in your area, right? If there's Krav Maga in your area, may there be better martial arts? But yeah, there might be. But doing Krav Maga, again, is better than sitting watching Netflix and then watching John Wick and then thinking that you're John Wick. Or watching Roadhouse and thinking that you can roundhouse kick somebody in the face. Right? Just do something. I don't care if it's kickboxing. Is that the most realistic thing that you can train in? No, but not like, I'm not talking about the cardio, because that's good cardio, but like the actual physical contact of punching and kicking, it's a lot better than nothing. Instead of debating intellectually the merits of this versus that, and there's a time for intellectual debate, I get that. I'm not against being intellectual and debating, but you do something. I don't care what it is. Pick one. If you don't know how to take a hit, if you don't know how to hit, punch, elbow, kick, hammer fist, the basics, how to grapple, how to roll around on the ground, how to wrestle. Pick something. Because in a fight, any of those disciplines that you execute well or quickly, decisively, is probably better than just standing there when you get punched in the face because you've never been punched in the face before. Or kicked in the genitals before. That happens. Be less concerned about what's the optimal and just more concerned about, are you actually doing something? Are you actually training? This is probably more for young guys, but maybe old guys are still into this too, like tricking out your ride. Whatever cool young people vernacular you're using, right? Are these the best rims? Is this cold air intake really going to boost my performance? How about, do you have emergency medical equipment in your car and do you know how to use it? Because statistically, the most dangerous thing you're going to do is drive. We just discount it because we're so familiar with it, so used to it, it's become mundane. But realistically, it's probably the most dangerous thing you do. I'll often go rucking in the woods at night. That's hiking in the woods at night with all those aforementioned critters around. bear and lion and wolf and all manner of things. And some people might be worried about that. Isn't that dangerous? Isn't that dangerous? I mean, yeah, there is a danger there. It's probably more dangerous driving from your house in the suburbs to work every day with a bunch of teenage girls texting. That's probably actually more dangerous than going rucking in the woods at night with a pack. A lot of times I think we have our things that we're concerned about just in the wrong order. A lot of people, and this, you just come from somebody that spent a big chunk of their life fighting terrorists, both overseas and domestically. As you might have heard in the bio. The reason I put that in, so you know that I have some bona fides as to what I'm talking about, some street cred, right? I spent a large chunk of my life training for fighting terrorists, actually fighting terrorists, and training others to fight terrorists. Is that a real threat? Yeah. Should you as a man be able to provide and protect those around you, those weaker than you, women and children? Yeah, you should. That's your duty as a man. This is the Alpha Male Podcast, of course. But your odds of getting killed by a terrorist, if you look historically, are probably far less likely than you getting killed by your own government. And that might seem like crazy talk or whatever, but look at how many people were killed in the 20th century by democide. Democide is not killed by somebody else in war. Democide is being killed by your own government. By the millions. People were killed by their own governments all over the world in the 20th century. We're not talking about the Middle Ages here. It happened then too. But statistically, you're a lot more likely to get killed by your own government than you are from terrorists. What are you doing about that? And that would never happen here. This is America. Well, I mean, that's a ridiculous argument. And I would be far more concerned right now if I were Canadian. If you look at what happened in Nazi Germany in like the early 1930s, Nazi Germany was like a shining light of civilization. By the early 1940s, they were killing their own citizens. That wasn't some backwater, banana republic or third world crap hole in sub-Saharan Africa somewhere. We're talking about Germany. It was a first world nation, one of the greatest nations in the world at the time. You look at what happened there and think that can't happen here. Why? Because that's not an answer, right? You look at, again, Canada. How did that start in Nazi Germany? They started making what was evil good and good evil. Look, immediately preceding that in those days, they started. This sexual revolution stuff is not new. There was all kinds of debauchery. Look up the debauchery that was happening in the 1930s as far as the sexual revolution there. Making good, wholesome things outdated and making these crazy, outlandish things the new cool, the new normal, the new everything's okay. Right? Degrading the morals of society. What happened after that? Started taking away people's guns. Does that sound familiar? Oh, Canada? I'm saying it couldn't happen here, but just looking around, it seems more likely in Canada first. But who knows? I don't see the future, right? I don't. But if you statistically look at what's more likely to kill you, a terrorist or your own government, it's not even close. Terrorists kill people. Yeah, for sure. There are radical Muslim terrorists that want to kill you because you are a Christian, because you are a shining light in the world. They want to snuff you out, cut your head off, do unspeakable things to women and children. Yeah, those disgusting people exist. They're a real threat. But statistically, your own government's way more likely to kill you. And that's just a reality. Often starts with a painting of us versus them. Us versus them. Where have we seen that recently? Vaxxed versus unvaxxed? If you didn't want to get an experimental gene therapy, you were somehow subhuman? We're not talking ancient history. We're talking a couple of years ago. Anyway, make sure you're focused where you probably should be. Did you ever think that you'd see things like that here in America? Literally barring preachers from preaching, barring churches from assembling. Did you ever think you'd see that? Again, I hope none of that happens, right? I don't see the future, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying if you're concerned about something, what makes more sense to be concerned about? Both, but which majority of your concern, where should it be? In which basket? Terrorism or democide? I'm just saying. Now, I was a cop for a long time. I am pretty aware of how nasty a lot of street drugs are. right? Meth is a disgustingly horrible drug. And I say methamphetamines. There's a lot of different ways and stuff to make meth. I actually was a drug recognition expert for the state of California. I'm very aware of a lot of that kind of stuff and how it works. It's nasty, nasty stuff. Heroin is nasty, nasty. Now, fentanyl, to be fair, was not around when, at least it wasn't a common street drug at the time, but that's a nasty, horrible. Fentanyl is a real thing today that I didn't really have to deal with, but fentanyl is a real thing, and it's kind of become, beware of the fentanyl. It's hiding around every corner. And fentanyl's some bad stuff. I'm not going to lie. A lot of that stuff is bad. A lot of times, worry about the street drugs. What about the drugs that are being prescribed? You want to hear something scary? Look up what percentage of the U.S. population is on drugs. And I don't mean crack. I don't mean even marijuana, which I don't even really care about that. I don't do it. I've never done it. But I'm less worried about that than actual prescription drugs that are totally legal. Not only legal, prescribed to you by somebody with a degree that says you should probably take this. Keep eating your little Debbies and take this drug. What about all the young people, all the young men? Because I don't think little boys were designed to sit down and shut up in a chair for 8 hours a day. And because they get a little fidgety, they shove them on drugs. How many lives do you think are wrecked by that? Don't you think that's a bigger threat to our kids? Those psychotropic drugs, those kind of prescribed drugs? Because a little boy who's probably supposed to be out hitting stuff in the forest with a stick is shoved in a chair and can't sit still. What's the answer? Oh, let's shove them on a bunch of drugs. Now, I don't know. There are certainly cases where some people probably benefit from drugs. I'm not going to deny that, but look at how many... Think in your head how many people you think actually should be on drugs. Like, what do you think that should be like? People that actually have real problems that should be on prescription medication. 1%, 3%, 5% of people that really have a disorder that requires prescription medication. And look at the actual percentage of the U.S. population that's on prescription medication. It's staggering. That perhaps should be what we're looking at for fixing society. Not that we can't try and stop people from using or help them get off of opiates. Is heroin bad? Yeah, but so is oxycodone, and oxycodone is prescribed like crazy. How many people in this country are addicted to opiates that they didn't get off the street from some guy in a dark alley that were prescribed to them by somebody with a degree? You got some aches and some pains, take some oxycodone. There you go. Forget about me getting kickbacks from a drug company to prescribe it for you. But that's somehow legal, but we're not concerned about that. We're concerned about the fentanyl. And again, not that you shouldn't be concerned about fentanyl. It's a nasty drug. Methamphetamine is a horrible, nasty drug. But it probably affects way less Americans than actual prescription, just opiates. And there's a bunch of other drugs too, but just opiates prescribed. That's a nasty thing. And I'm not saying there's never a case of prescribed opiates. Right, you're chopping off somebody's leg, probably opiates are good. But come on, look at the numbers. That perhaps is what we should be concerned about. But there's a lot of money flowing in that, so it doesn't seem to be a lot of people concerned about it. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain while a bunch of elites are getting rich and people in the street are dying. Instead, be distracted by this other, paper tiger. Step back and look at things critically. Do you ever think that they call TV stuff? I don't have a television. I hope you don't either. But if you do, they call it programming. Think about that. Are you being programmed? What are you being programmed to be afraid of? And I've heard a quote. I don't even know who said it, and I didn't come up with it. But it's, the media won't generally tell you how to think, but they do influence what you think about. Even that, right? Unplug. Are you spending a bunch of your time thinking about things that are just very, very well, they're much less important than actual big issues that you should be concerned about. I'm going to get controversial here. Black lives matter. Of course Black lives matter. It's a human life. We're made in the image of God. God made us all. We are all descendants of Adam. Of course Black lives matter. That's the stupidest saying I've ever heard. Of course they matter. But if you're really worried about Black lives, stop abortion. Right? Look at the percentage of Black abortions in our country. Is one or two adult Black men getting beat to death unfairly by the police a horrible tragedy? Yeah. But somehow the millions of just young Black men in the womb getting literally ripped apart or drugged to death, ripped out of their mother's womb, somehow that's okay. Don't worry about that. It's all legal. It's your right to choose. Don't worry about that. And again, I'm not saying that anybody should be unfairly beaten by the police. But what I'm saying is, you're missing the forest for the trees. There's millions of Black, white, Hispanic babies being murdered. All those people that rioted because somebody got beat to death unfairly. Is that unfair? Yeah, but where aren't you outside the abortion clinics? Rioting when some young Black mother gets a baby ripped out of her. Oh, because it's her right to choose, right? That makes a lot of sense. Talk about hypocrisy. Makes me sick. Hopefully it makes you sick. I actually wasn't even thinking about going there. Just went there. But it seems like a pretty good place to start wrapping it up. You concerned about injustice? Yeah, you should be concerned about injustice. You shall do no injustice in judgment. Who is more deserving of our protection than infants, than babies? What are you concerned about? What are you worried about? Where are your priorities? Instead of being afraid of what people try and make you afraid of, instead of being concerned about what's actually going on in society. Think for yourself. Think critically. Take a step back and look around. You were given a brain. You were given reason. Stop thinking based on party lines. Stop thinking based on what somebody is flashing in front of you on a TV screen. God made you in His own image. There's a lot that goes into that. We're called to seek justice, love mercy. We're also called to seek out wisdom, be wise, be discerning. Those are good qualities in a man. We're supposed to stand up and fight injustice. Think about what's really important. That's kind of the point of this episode. With that, it's kind of a heavy topic, so no tactical tip of the day today, but a tactical verse of the day. If you want a tactical tip, go to the Patreon page. You don't even have to be a patron. There's plenty of stuff on there for the public. There should be a link in the show notes for the Patreon page. There's a bunch of tactical tips on there if you want tactical stuff. But I think it's better to go into the scripture right now. This is from Exodus 23. This comes shortly after the 10 Commandments are given. You shall not pervert judgment for your poor in his dispute. Keep yourself far from a false matter. Do not kill the innocent and righteous, for I will not justify the wicked. And you shall take no bribe, for a bribe blinds the discerning and perverts the words of the righteous. Also, you shall not oppress a stranger. I am humbled and blessed that you come here and listen. I really am. I'm humbled that I get the opportunity to do this. Thank you. I am humbled that you gave some of your very precious resource, time, something you're never going to get back. I really appreciate your time today. Thank you, and have a blessed day.